The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Okay, welcome everyone. We're just about to get started, so everybody can get settled in, and if you feel like letting us know where you're from, feel free to type that into the chat. It's always fun to know who's present here, and we always have such a global audience. But I'm so happy to have all of you here. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to be here. And of course, it's a great opportunity to collect a PDU as well. So let me just make sure everybody is getting in. All right. Okay, I think we're just about at the top of the hour. One clock is saying we're at the top of the hour. One is saying we're not quite there yet. So I'm going to go with we're at the top of the hour. So I'll get started. My name is Judy Hirsch, for those of you who don't know me. And today I'm presenting the value-driven delivery in Agile. And we'll be relating this content back to the PMP exam content outline. And before we begin, I just want to go over some webinar logistic details. Throughout the webinar, we will have the questions box open, and we'll have an official Q&A session at the end too. So if you have questions, you can just simply type them into the questions box in your GoToWebinar console, and we'll try to get to your questions live. Your questions and comments are going to be, great contributions to the value of this presentation. And if you want to highlight anything that's being said or comment on anything, just use the chat window for that. So we're going to try to reserve the questions box just for questions. Otherwise, sometimes they get lost when there's so many other things. So if there's something you want to put in the chat, use the chat box. And if it's a question, please use the question box only for questions. I don't want to miss responding to anyone's questions. So thank you. I appreciate that. And we want to get through the entire presentation slides today within the hour. So as the volume of questions grows, we may defer some questions to the end. But either way, feel free to type in your questions. Now, this, as I mentioned a moment ago, this webinar does offer one PDU, and I will give you all those details that you need to report that as well at the end. The recording of this event will be posted on the RMC website if you'd like to review it again, and or any of our past educational webinars, and we do have quite a few. So again, thank you for joining us. We're ready to get started. So just a couple things, really administrative things. We want to respect the copyright of PMI for their various publications and certifications. So this is about, copyright notice and attribution statements. As far as this same thing, our materials are copyright protected. So if you have questions or need assistance, just contact us at RMC Learning Solutions about our event or anything you have questions on. Just want to give you a very brief overview of my background so you know who is here presenting these materials for you. So I'm a professional business coach, I'm a trainer, I'm a certified project management professional. I was certified in 2013, and I have more than 20 years of experience in project management, business analysis, software training, and professional development training in a few different industries, primarily pharmaceutical and information technology, IT, and biotech as well. I have a bachelor's degree in biology and a master's in international business. And I've had the wonderful opportunity to lead cross-functional, cross-cultural teams around the world, Europe, Australia, and Asia through major global initiatives in software implementation and compliance projects for Fortune 500 companies, Merck, Novo Nordisk are some of them, Abbott Laboratories, Citrix Systems, and now I teach certification courses such as the PMP exam prep course for RMC Learning Solutions full-time. I'm excited to say. In fact, that leads me to giving you a little bit of background on RMC Learning Solutions. If you're not familiar, Rita Mulcahy was the founder of RMC Learning Solutions, and she was a project manager in the late 90s, and she was one of the first world certified PMPs. And she was frustrated by the lack of quality PMP preparation materials available, so she founded RMC Learning Solutions back in 1991. And the first edition of her book was published in 1998. And at the time, it was the first and only comprehensive resource that was dedicated to PMP exam preparation. So RMC Learning Solutions has helped over 1 million professionals prepare for their certification exams, for project management, for business analysis, for Agile. And we have a number of learning solutions and products ranging from self-study to e-learning to classroom to instructor-led virtual as well. And we have an international reach. We're currently trained in 60 regions in 18 languages. So we have an outcome-based learning through our professional instructors, coaches, and mentors all around the world. And now we're celebrating. Very fortunate that you found your way here. You're in the right place if you want to learn and or pass your PMP exam. There's a slight delay, so I'm just pausing for a moment. Okay, we're going into our agenda now. We have a full agenda, so let's dive in. We're going to talk briefly about the standard for project management, process to principles. We're going to look at predictive versus adaptive life cycles. We're going to talk about the Agile value proposition, Agile practices supporting value delivery, verifying and validating value, integration with PMP exam content outline, 3 tips that you can take away and use today, how to prepare for the exam, recording your PDU for today, very important, and your questions answered. A lot. All right, let's get started. So since 1987, the standard for project management has represented a process-based standard. It aligned the project management discipline and function around a collection of business processes. And this was, while this was really effective in supporting good practice, process-based standards they're really prescriptive and limited just by their very nature. And with project management evolving more rapidly than ever before, just like everything else, the process-based orientation of the past editions of PMBOK just can't be maintained in a way that's conducive to reflecting the full value delivery landscape of today's project management. So the 7th edition of PMBOK shifts to a principles-based standard to support effective project management. And what that does is it allows for more flexibility, and it focuses on tailoring project management to the individual project. And as a result, the standard now emphasizes that projects don't simply produce outputs, but more importantly, enable those outputs to drive outcomes that ultimately deliver value to the organization and its stakeholders. So the change in the standard is just one part of the evolutionary landscape of project management. We also see a progression toward using an adaptive or agile versus traditional predictive project methodology, especially when it comes to high-tech projects or any projects that involve a lot of uncertainty or changing needs when the project begins. So according to PMI, organizations that embrace agility and adaptability, they outperform their counterparts, which means completing more projects successfully. So we'll look at an example now of a predictive versus an adaptive or agile life cycle with respect to value delivery, since that's the main area of focus of our talk today. So this figure you're seeing here shows a predictive or traditional life cycle example. It's a life cycle where one phase finishes before the next one begins. This type of life cycle is characteristic of the predictive development approach, since each phase is only performed once, and each phase focuses on a particular type of work. What happens is this phase becomes challenging when situations arise that require adding scope, or changing requirements, or changes in the marketplace that are going to cause phases to be repeated. Whereas this next figure shows a life cycle using an agile or adaptive development approach. So at the end of each iteration or sprint, and if you're newer to Agile, an iteration or a sprint are time-boxed product development periods, usually lasting about 1 to 4 weeks. The customer is going to review a functional deliverable at the end of each of these development periods or iterations. And at the review, the key stakeholders will provide feedback, and the project team updates the list of work that needs to be done to build the product. The list of work that needs to be done to build the product is called the product backlog. And then we can prioritize for the next build or next iteration. So this approach optimizes the flow of deliverables to the customer as delivery of these what's called a minimum viable product MVP, is provided throughout the project lifecycle. So value is being delivered early in the project, and not just early, but on an ongoing basis throughout the project. So again, a minimum viable product is an increment of a product that is useful enough, in other words, provides enough value for the customer to take delivery of the product and use it while the team continues building the rest of the product. And it also minimizes time and resource waste, while at the same time optimizing the efficiency of the processes and also the throughput of the deliverables. So just taking a moment, hopefully you can see my mouse here on the screen, maybe not, but you'll see, and I'll just talk you through it if you can't see my mouse, that we have iteration 1, which means we're building a deliverable or a minimum viable product, or which means an increment of the full deliverable. And then after the first iteration, we're meeting with the customer and getting feedback. And then we're reprioritizing the backlog based on the feedback that we received. In other words, we're reprioritizing the scope of the work we're going to be working on. And then we go into the next iteration, where we're building another increment of the product. And again, we get feedback and so on. So we're continually delivering value in an agile life cycle throughout the life of the product. Throughout the life of the project. So maximizing value is an overarching theme or mantra, if you will, for Agile teams. So when Agile teams are faced with a decision, Agile teams ask, which choice will add the most value for the customer? The focus on delivering value then drives many of the activities and decisions on an Agile project, and it's the ultimate goal of many of the practices of when we're talking about the Agile toolbox or toolkit. So the Agile Manifesto was a document created in 2001 by a group of 17 software developers who were looking for an alternative to traditional software development processes. So let me just pause there. I would love to hear from you just for a moment. How many of you have either heard of the Agile Manifesto or you're familiar with it? Just pop in the chat if you would, yes or no. Yes, if you're familiar with it or you've even heard of the Agile Manifesto. No, if you never heard of the Agile Manifesto at all. Pop that in the chat. Just want to see the audience here, your level of familiarity with different things. I'm checking the chat here. Are you able to use the chat? I think we're using the questions box. That's okay. Let's see what we have. It's called chat here, okay. So, comments. Oh, I see. I'm getting feedback that you don't, I see you don't, Angela's saying, can see on the cycle example. Okay. I guess you don't see the chat. Maybe it's not coming through. But I see a lot of yeses. Here we go. Yes, yes, yes. Wow, okay. I knew it. Okay, great. Yeah, doing your exam, no. Yeah, somewhat. Okay, great. I'm just curious. Okay. Very familiar with Agile Manifesto. Okay, we got some that are very familiar with it. Right, and you actually worked on helping develop Agile methodology. Wow, Robin, that's amazing. That's fantastic. That's incredible. So we have a really educated audience on this topic, which is phenomenal. I love that. Great. Super. Thank you for that, by the way. That's really helpful. So the manifesto, for those of you that aren't as familiar with it, it outlines 12 principles and 4 values of Agile development. Now, this was written, like I was saying, originally for software development. Now it's used with all different types of projects. And one of the main values is, as it says here on the slide, working software over comprehensive documentation, meaning working software is more important than comprehensive documentation. And as far as, I just put a couple of the Agile Manifesto principles on the slide. The first one I have here is deliver working software frequently, and working software is the primary measure of progress. Now, this was originally designed, like we said, for software, but you would insert whatever you're working on, whatever deliverable. So the deliverable, we're delivering value frequently on the deliverable. We're delivering increments of whatever the output is. And then we are delivering a working version, which is the primary measure of progress versus we're 30% complete with the project. Check. Whatever it is we want to have working deliverable. That's the measure of progress. So I encourage you, for those of you not familiar with the Agile Manifesto, to review all the values and the principles. And you can access the Agile Manifesto by typing agilemanifesto.org. It's .org. Or of course, you can just type in Agile Manifesto. Okay, let's take a look at the Agile value proposition. This is the level of value Agile methods are able to deliver in comparison to non-Agile methods. And this is highly visible on this graphic, showing visibility, you see adaptability, business value, and risk of Agile development versus traditional development. Traditional meaning predictive, waterfall, plan driven. Okay, so one of the key ways Agile teams try to maximize value is by delivering value early. And they do this by delivering the highest value portions of the project as soon as possible. And because the longer the project runs, the longer the horizon becomes for risks that can reduce value, like failure or decreasing benefits or erosion of opportunities and so on. So another major reason for focusing on early value delivery is the stakeholder. The stakeholder satisfaction is going to play a really big role in project success. So tangible results helps the team raise the confidence of our stakeholders, build rapport with them, and get them on board early, creating this kind of virtuous cycle of support. And in short, value delivery means making decisions that prioritize the value-adding activities and risk-reducing efforts for the project, and then executing based on those priorities. So let's now look at Agile practices supporting value delivery. Let's start with minimizing waste. So wasteful activities reduce value. I don't have to tell you that. This is why Agile methodologies have adopted the lean concept of minimizing waste and other non-value adding activities. So for example, while the project is being executed, an Agile team might reduce or postpone activities that are maybe required by the organization, but not directly focused on delivering value, like formal time tracking or reporting. So to maximize value, it's useful. I think it might be helpful just as a reference for you if you want to reference a book it's by Tom and Mary Popendiek, and it really, we're going to talk about this in a moment, but it lists the 7 wastes. And this is taken from their book, Implementing Lean Software Development from Concept to Cash. Again, Implementing Lean Software Development from Concept to Cash by the Popendieks. And they have done a great job mapping software waste from the corresponding waste described in lean manufacturing. You see that on the left side of this slide. So let's talk through these briefly. So one of the wastes that was outlined in the book was partially done work in progress, in other words. Code that's not checked in, code that's not tested, or test cases that are not actually executed, right? Or requirements that are analyzed, but they're not developed. So we're trying to minimize that work in progress. Also, extra features that are fully developed, they're tested, and they're delivered to the end user, but they were never used. Also, relearning, spending effort in learning something more than once because of loss of information, right? This loss could occur due to lengthy delays or task switching or handoffs. And that brings us to the next one. So handoffs is where we're passing information from one team member to another, which may cause loss or even change in the information. So for example, communicating customer requirements from a customer representative to the analyst, and then to a team member, and then finally to the developer that's going to be developing the product. Right? These are handoffs that are considered wasteful activities. Delays. These are time intervals in which one or more team members are idle, waiting for input from another activity. For example, waiting for staffing in a project, long approval processes, lengthy feedback loops, requirements gathering, those kind of things. And then we have task switching. Those are interruptions during execution, which causes, we all know how task switching can derail us, right? If we have interruptions when we're executing, it can cause ineffectiveness in our time usage, like if we're switching focus or priorities, working on more than one thing at a time, or we're serving multiple customers at once, and we're fixing issues while we're developing new features, so on. And then we have defects. So defect waste is not only the time spent in testing and fixing whatever the defect is, but also the time it actually is there lying undetected, which causes just subtle undetected issues in the operation of the customer side, which is not a good thing. So now that we've minimized waste by talking about this, let's look at value prioritization tools next. Let me just pause there and see if there's any questions related to anything we've done so far. Okay. Not seeing anything here. Okay. So value prioritization tools. Value prioritization refers to the agile practice of working on the items that yield the highest value to the customer first. The product owner, in communication, of course, with the customer, is responsible for keeping the items in the backlog prioritized by business value. So again, the backlog is that list of work that needs to be done. That's the scope of the product. And so as new work items are added, like change requests, the customer prioritizes them so their value can be compared to the existing items on the list, and the backlog then gets updated according to the new priorities. So the way that it works is the team sits down with the customer to review the list of work and ask the customer, has anything changed? Do we still want to work on feature B right next, whatever the feature is? So different agile methodologies like Scrum use different tools for customer valued prioritization. Scrum has a product backlog that we've been referring to, and we have something called feature driven development that's another agile methodology, and that has a feature list instead of a backlog. And then dynamic systems development method, or DSDM, has a prioritized requirements list. So regardless of what it's called and the different nuances and the different development and the different methodologies, the idea is the same. The team works through a list of items that have identifiable value and have been prioritized by the customer, the end user, stakeholders, key stakeholders. So prioritization schemes, let's talk about that next. First of all, there's no specific prioritization scheme that's best for all Agile projects. Each team should choose their prioritization scheme based on the needs of the project and what works best for the organization. So we're going to look at two common prioritization schemes used in Agile projects to facilitate value delivery. So one of the simplest schemes is just to label items as priority 1, priority 2, or priority 3, and so on. And this is really straightforward, but can cause issues. Stakeholders really have a tendency to designate everything as priority 1. Why? Because there's a discomfort or fear that maybe if they're labeled priority 2 or priority 3, they're going to get cut from the project. But if too many items are listed as priority 1, the scheme, of course, becomes ineffective. And for the same reason, using high, medium, and low prioritization can also be, problematic. So let's look at another prioritization scheme. Some of you may have heard of the Moscow scheme, which derives its name from the first letters of the labels that you see here on the screen. We have must have, should have, could have, would like to have, but not at this time. So must have is, the most vital things you can't live without. You have to have this. You should have things you consider as important but not vital. Could have things that are nice to have, and then won't have things that provide maybe little to no value at this time, so you can actually let those particular ones go. Now the O, as you see, there's some O's inserted there just to make the pronunciation easier. So we can call it Moscow. We can have a nice catchy name to it. Now there are other approaches such as monopoly money or 100-point method and voting, but the point is the prioritization based on business value is emphasized with the Agile development approach. Now let's look at some ranking, how we're going to be ranking things. So regardless of prioritization schemes the team is going to be using, their focus should be on the end goal, understanding the priority of features. What you see on the slide is an example of a simple relative priority list, where each feature is listed in order of priority. And the items at the top of the list, which would be features A through D in this simple example, are part of the defined minimum viable product. The minimum increment, or scope of a product that still delivers value is defined by the customer. So if scope needs to be cut to meet any kind of constraints, for example, budget constraints or schedule constraints, it's clear by looking at this simple list that adjustments need to be made to item E, right? Like it says here, cut off to meet budget and time. So we have some way of prioritizing and ranking our list of features, which is another important aspect. And then we want to talk about delivering incrementally. So delivering with incrementally is another way that Agile methods optimize the delivery of value. Incremental delivery, the team regularly deploys working increments of the product over the course of the project, like we looked at the very beginning. So the idea really is to deliver the plain vanilla version of a product or service while working on the more complex elements. So we could call this plan the kind of plain vanilla version of the MVP. This way we have an opportunity to start realizing the benefits of the product and get an early return on our investment. So as a software development example could be what you see here on the slide, an order entry and billing system complete while the management reporting and marketing links are not yet built. And the company will then still gain benefit from deploying these early versions of the system, which is the order entry plus billing only. And this really does apply to all types of Agile projects, whether it's a release of software or a new electrical product or an engineering increment. The term minimum viable product or MVP refers to this package of functionality that's it's complete enough to be useful to the users or the market, yet still small enough that it doesn't represent the entire project. So for a more familiar example, let's consider a cell phone. A minimum viable product could be a phone that can be used to make and receive calls or store contact names and has voicemail maybe, but it doesn't have a camera or internet connectivity or a music player in its first release, right? I can't even imagine that anymore. Instead, the functionality will be added, the additional functionality will be added in later releases, in future releases. So to summarize what we're talking about here, the incremental release can allow for some ROI, some return on investment, while the team develops the remaining functionality. And for the specific example on this slide, it also provides an opportunity to field test the order entry and billing system. Right? That's another advantage. So should we talk about verifying and validating value? That's where we are next. Let's look at that with this great picture we have here. So the Agile team may feel that they're building great products and services, but it's important to confirm with the sponsors, the users, or the product owner. And our Agile methods are often used on projects that are more intangible. They tend to be things like software designs and so on. So these end products mean it's all the more important to validate that what the team is building is on track and delivering the level of value the customer and the business is actually expecting. So this challenge is really illustrated in what's called the gulf of evaluation, and that you see here on the slide. So these type of illustrations show us how easy it is for communication to break down, especially when describing something intangible. So we have here the first frame says how the customer explained it, and then we have how the Scrum Master understood it, quite different. And then we move to how the developers built it with all these little extra things in there, and then the customer really needed. So, just to summarize, confirming value, meaning verifying that the team is building the right thing and that it works as desired, is a key practice when using Agile methodologies. So let's discuss approaches used by Agile teams to facilitate optimal communication and eliminate or even mitigate things like this gulf of evaluation, right? Which could obviously cause real problems with our projects. I'm sure some of you have examples of when things didn't go as planned and there was misunderstanding and miscommunications, right? So let's talk about low-tech, high-touch tools. So instead of using these kind of high-tech tools, Agile teams prefer to use these lower tech, maybe more high interaction, high-touch approaches to planning and tracking. Things like note cards, sticky notes, charts, boards. Yeah, this figure is a comparison of a task list that's generated by a scheduling software like MS Project, that's on the left, and the same task list transferred to a task board like a Kanban board on the right. So notice how much easier it is just to grasp at a glance the status of the work. Agile teams use these tools as the primary method of tracking and reporting, again, value. So these low-tech tools are much more hands-on, literally, and it really encourages everyone to get involved, which can really increase accuracy while promoting communication and collaboration. And team members can actually move things around on the board to update and reflect the current status just very easily and very visibly to bring attention to what's going on, and of course if any issues arise, and then when things are complete, which is very motivating for the team as well. So again, this is very helpful way of communicating and keep eliminating that, or at least reducing the issues that arise with when we're talking about the gulf of evaluation. So let's look at another approach of Agile that supports efficient and effective value-driven delivery. This is different types of meetings. Frequent verification and validation is practiced at a lot of different levels on Agile projects. It's an effective antidote to both the fact that making mistakes is part of being human and the mismatch of expectations that happens when the team maybe interprets the customer's end goal differently than what the customer had intended. And so with frequent verification and validation, we're checking to make sure that things are working and progressing as they should to provide the deliverables and the value the project was intended to produce, of course, for the organization, also to produce for the stakeholders. So these type of meetings that you see here on the screen provide a way for issues to be found and corrected early in the product life cycle. Keep in mind, these are typically shorter meetings. I mean, some of these are very short. Like daily stand-ups are usually around 15 minutes. And the goal is to seek answers to or address questions that you see on the slide here. So the agenda and purpose is clearly defined for each meeting. So for example, let's start with iteration planning meeting. This happens before each iteration. Iteration are that time box cycle of development. And in this meeting, further details for that upcoming iteration are worked out. And details already documented are just verified right before we go into iteration. Then we have our daily stand-up meetings, and those are really designed momentum during an iteration, to have accountability, to help people to remove any impediments. We're communicating. It's a time to really talk to and find out, what have we done? What has each person done since the last meeting? What are they working on right now? And are there any issues or impediments going forward? So those can be addressed. And things can keep, like we said, keep moving forward. And then we have the iteration review meetings, and that's at the end of each iteration. This type of meeting is to demonstrate or demo the new work that has been completed, that deliverable or the minimum viable product to the customer, to the stakeholders, and verify that they're building the right product so far, that they're on the right track. Getting that feedback, like we showed at the beginning with that loop. So we're getting feedback, we're potentially reprioritizing the backlog based on the feedback, and we're then going into the next iteration. Whereas the retrospective, this is kind of like a lessons learned. This takes place at the end of each each of those short time box iterations. And it's an opportunity for the development team members to inspect and adapt their methods and teamwork. How are they working together? How can they continuously improve? It's a part of that mindset of continuous improvement. That's a retrospective. Okay, so integration with the exam content outline. So how does everything we talked about integrate with the ECO, especially for those of us who are looking to take the exam? We want to know how this is all connected. And I'm referring to the PMP exam. So domain 2. So there's two real, domains that we're going to look at where this is really highlighted particularly. So with domain 2, we're talking about the process domain, and particularly these tasks that you see on the screen here. It really relates to, first of all, task 1 in the ECO, which says execute project with the urgency required to deliver business value. And the enablers that belong to that task. So the task is really a description of what's expected of us in the project management role. And the enablers, which are below that, if this is, again, if I'm referring to the exam content outline, are illustrative examples of that task. So not exhaustive by any means. They're just a few examples of what we mean by the task. So for the first one, some enablers are assess opportunities to deliver value incrementally, examine the business value throughout the project, and support the team to subdivide project tasks as necessary to find the minimum viable product. Another task that's related to our discussion today is plan and manage scope, right? It's scope that's the value that we're delivering. So the enablers for plan and manage scope are determine and prioritize requirements, break down the scope, and monitor and validate scope. And task 13, which is determine appropriate project methodology and methods and practices. And the enabler says use iterative incremental practices throughout the project lifecycle, right? So we're delivering through each iteration, we're delivering value, something that minimum viable product that the customers can use. All right, let's look at the business environment domain, which is domain 3, and how what we talked about relates to one of the tasks, particularly in domain 3, business environment, and that is evaluate and deliver project benefits and value. And the enablers being evaluate delivery options to demonstrate value and appraise stakeholders of value gain progress, right? Keeping our stakeholders informed of the value gain. Okay, are we ready to talk about some tips that we can use starting right away? Okay, let's move forward in that. So regardless of the development approach, whether it's agile, predictive, hybrid, that you're currently implementing in your projects, there are beneficial practices that we can leverage from the agile mindset. Number one being minimize wasteful activities. And so the suggestion here is to review your project activities end to end, and ask yourself, where might I be engaging in wasteful activities? Just walk through that process. Secondly, create or enhance effective methods for assigning priorities. We talked about some of those. So having tools to track and assign priorities, like a requirements traceability matrix or the product backlog. And then have some kind of prioritization scheme, like we mentioned, was the Moscow was an example. Must have, should have, could have, would like to happen, not at this time. And then also a process for making priority adjustments when constraints become limiting factors. And then the third tip is improving communications, right? This is something we could all benefit from. Prioritizing face-to-face is something that is really done in agile projects. That's part of the manifesto, is build as much as we can, work face-to-face where it's feasible, even if we're not co-located and located in the same physical location. Face-to-face meaning when we can talk like this, even if it's a video conference, but face-to-face where it makes sense can be very helpful. Visible, readily accessible status and task boards are very helpful as well. So we're always aware of what's happening. All of us have the same information at the same time. We can move things around and discuss. So everything is raised to that level of immediacy, meaning I can be aware in real time what's going on. And that's obviously very helpful for efficiency. And then short preparation and status meetings with clear agenda and purpose, right? How many of us have had meetings that have gone on way too long and we don't even know necessarily when we come in what they're trying to get out of the meeting, right? So having a clear agenda, being prepared with a purpose for that meeting is also very helpful. And if we can keep them succinct and short, right, all the better. But the more preparation goes into the meeting, the more effective that meeting is. Okay, so a few things that probably are reminders for a lot of you, but it's helpful to just tuck into this again and remind ourselves of some things we can do to maybe just up level what we're currently doing, take things to the next level. Now, RMC Learning Solutions offers a lot of different opportunities to help you prepare for your PMP certification. So if that's something that you're looking to do, either immediately or soon, sometimes it's nice to think about it now. I always think when we go into the new year, it's a really good time to start thinking about getting these things ready and starting off the new year either with your PMP or just getting ready to take that exam at the beginning of the year. So we offer courses, many different courses, like we have instructor-led virtual in this kind of format that we're doing here. We have e-learning. We have on-site where we come out to your location, your companies. We also have a lot of different prep materials that are amazing materials. We have a PMP exam prep book, both print and digital. We have the PMP Fast Track Exam Simulator, which is a phenomenal tool, very robust, a lot of different ways that simulator can be used. We have Hot Topics, which are electronic flashcards that are also extremely helpful for memorization and integration of the content. And I also love the downloadable audio book as well. So a lot of materials. So if you want more information, just reach out to us at info@rmcls.com. Feel free just to give us a call, and we'd be happy to help you get more information or get started depending on where you are in your process. And okay, I'm going to check one more. I want to deliver one more slide before we go into questions. So in fact, I'm going to pop something in the chat for you right now. These are steps to report your PDUs in your PMI account. And I'm going to add something else here in the chat for you. What I have here, hopefully that came through okay for you, is I have, if you want to just click the link, the first link I put in there, that will take you directly to where you can log your PDU. I'll explain more about that in just a moment, actually what to log, but you do have to log in, of course, for that one. And then the other two links I have in the chat are upcoming webinars, educational webinars to earn additional PDUs. And I also have a link if you're interested in knowing what our upcoming instructor-led virtual classes are. Just for ease of use, of course, you can go to our website as well, but I thought it might be easier to pop it in the chat for you. So steps to report PDUs. First of all, you can if you don't want to click the link, you can log into your account, click on your picture or your name in the upper right corner of your screen and select dashboard, and then you can go down to, from your dashboard, report PDUs. Or you can go directly to that page, that continuing certification requirements page, by clicking the link I put in the chat. Then what you want to do when you get to that page is click on online or digital media, okay? And that is for reporting webinar PDUs. And then you'll type the provider name, which for us is Peterson's LLC DBA RMC Learning Solutions, and click enter. So this is, I like to explain this because we're not in the drop-down box. So some people get stuck or they get an error message. So when you type that in, Peterson's, you type the provider name in, make sure you click enter on your keyboard. So it's like you're validating your manual entry by clicking enter. And then you can tab down to the next field, which is the title field. So the event title for today, as you know, is Value Driven Delivery in Agile. And again, click enter to validate that. Then you can copy and paste the title into the description field, because the description field is a required field. I don't think it used to be, but it is now. So you could just copy paste if you want the title into the description field. And then you can select the calendar icon and enter the date started and date completed, December 15th. And of course, under the PDUs claim, enter one PDU under ways of working. And you also finally want to click the I agree this claim is accurate checkbox and click submit. Okay, so that, I just want to walk you through, because every once in a while somebody will have an error message or have issue reporting. I want to make sure that you don't have any issues claiming your PDU for today. But I want to stop there, and I was trying to keep up with the questions, but to see if there's anything, but there's just a lot in the chat. So forgive me for not keeping up with these along the way. Let me just see. Oh, okay, great. So I see here, it's maybe out of order. Okay. It's does Agile add to the retraining as new iteration changes previous training? Okay, add to retrain. Does Agile add to retraining as new iteration changes? I'm not sure what that means, Danny. Does Agile add to retraining as new iteration changes previous training materials? I'm not sure. Let me think about that one for a second. I'm not. I mean, if you can retype maybe the question, I'm not sure what that means. Why do we need a prioritization if we have a ranking? The top priority items can be ranked higher than others. It's just a way, Gregorio, if we have a ranking, for you to, the scheme is just a way for us to be detailed about how we arrived at that, ranking, so that, these are the must-haves. It helps us in the prioritization process, or sorry, in the ranking process. If you have, I'm trying to read your question. It'll help you in the ranking process. How did you arrive at that ranking? Well, these are our must-haves. These are our, should-haves. These are our could-haves. It'll help you in that process to determine that. So these are just extra things that you can do, not extra, but helpful things or additional things that you can leverage to arrive at how your ranking is provided. Is it correct that we can't document our hours until after we have our PMP? Yeah, okay, I see what you're saying. Yes, so good point, question, Meg. So you're saying, I believe what you're saying is the hours, like for today, for example, yes, you would have to have your credential, your PMP credential, in order to track or report your PDUs. Yes, we have PMI ACP. Michael, we have PMI ACP prep materials as well. Reach out to us for that. We absolutely have that. We have classes for that as well. Our next classes will be in the new year, so keep posted on that. ACP has changed. Some of you may be aware. The exam content outline for the ACP, Agile Certified Practitioner, has recently been updated. So we're updating our materials, and that we're going to have our classes in the new year. Just for those of you that have been tracking this closely, there has been some changes. All right, so has RMC reviewed the new ACPE? Yes. Yes. Oh, thank you. That answers the next question. Good. Okay, passing the PMP. So it says your prep materials were of great value to me in passing my PMP flashcards. Thank you for that feedback, Vivian. So I'm so happy that our materials were of great value passing your PMP. Flashcards and audiobook, awesome. Love to hear that. So appreciate that. The provider name isn't populated even when I hit enter. Okay, so you may want to tab Taylor. So thank you for these. So you type it in. If you hit enter and it's not working, just tab over. But you may have to tab first, then enter. It's just that everybody's. I notice when I'm on different computers or different web browsers, or I'm not sure exactly what the variables are, to be honest. But I notice it's different. It can be different times you enter it. So either hit tab when you're finished typing the provider name, or enter. For me, enter usually is a fail safe. So please try that, enter or tab. Handoff. Okay, so good question, Tony. So handoff, the handoff piece of this was if we have multiple. So your question is, why is handoff considered wasteful? If we're handing it off multiple times, then that can be considered wasteful, rather than going from the source directly to who's going to be doing the developing, for example, of the product. So things get lost and things fall through the cracks the more we have handoffs. So then we're wasting time figuring out what was left behind and what we did wrong and so on. That's why wasteful. The PDU code ways of working. Is that what you mean by PDU code? So I think, Angela, it would be under ways of working when you're on your page. But I'm not sure about, oh, I see what you're saying, code. I'm sorry, there is no code. So you have to type in the name of our class today. So I see what you're saying. So the title is Value Driven Delivery in Agile. We have to manually enter that. There is no PDU code. And then again, you would tab or enter to make sure that's validated for you, okay? So thank you for that question. New features impact previous training already done. Hang on one second. New features impact. Danny, what do you mean? Oh, okay, I think you're coming back to what you had. New features, if new features impact training already done, is there a question in that? I have to go back to the previous question. New features impact training. So then if training's already done, we have new features, yeah, impact training already done, then we'd have to retrain, but I'm not sure what the question is. Come back to me with did you have a question about that? Because yes, that's true. If training was done, we would have to retrain if there was new features. What if marketing team disagrees on the minimum viable product? Yeah, this is like anything else. You know, so this is where, I mean, quite honestly, I'm teaching the PMP exam prep courses. When we have these disagreements, it's really about the negotiation and the interpersonal skills and emotional intelligence that we have to leverage in, the minimum viable product, taking into account and the feedback that, and again, I'd have to talk to you directly, but we have to consider what were the surveys saying from the products, what was from the end users, and the feedback. We have to go really on what is the market demand and about what we're going to be delivering in terms of minimum viable product based on the market demand, and have those discussions and negotiations with all the information in the meeting. And that's part of what we have to do, leading projects, having the right people in the room and the right justificational materials with us to have a discussion about that, so that we can arrive at a consensus about what this MVP is going to be. With that, we'd have to have a longer discussion about our skills in negotiation and communication. That's part of our class and what we teach. So thank you for that. So 11th edition still valid as PMP exam? Yes, thank you for the question, Lillian. PMP exam prep, 11th edition still valid for 2025 years. PMI certification cycle. DBA isn't populating in the CCR. So Taylor is having an issue with that. So again, Taylor, when you're typing that in and you may want to just refresh or start again, because when you go back to it, it should. So sometimes we have to do that, just kind of a technical thing. But go back in, try it again, because I've tested it many times, because we've had people in the past have issues. I don't want anybody here to have issues. So if you could just log out, log back in, try it again, typing it in, hitting enter, or typing it in, hitting tab, you should be able to make that work. Okay, and thank you for the compliment there. They're kind. I appreciate that. Does RMC? I think it's Hava, right? Hava, thank you. Does RMC still do PMP in-person training outside the corporate groups? Yes. So we still offer in-person training, Gary. So please reach out to us at info@rmcls.com if you're interested in the a group training. And so we don't have a PDU code. We have to type in the title. Okay, good. I'm glad, Farhan, that it was a good refresher on Agile concepts. Okay. We use JP uses RMC PMP prep book exclusively for our prep course material. Excellent. So happy to hear that. Thanks for that feedback, JP. Future, are you going to have any BA webinars or classes? Eric, we don't have it on the calendar yet, but yes, the answer is yes, we will. So thank you for that. So please stay plugged in, because we are going to, that's something that we definitely offer. Okay. Oh, Taylor, darn it. I'm so, can you do me a favor, Taylor, and reach out to info@rmcls.com, or reach out to me on Facebook, not Facebook, reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I'll help you individually, because that sounds like an issue, that maybe technical issue that I can help you with. So either info@rmcls.com, or connect with me on LinkedIn, and I'll see if I can help you directly. I don't want anybody to have any issues. Can you give a provider ID? We don't have an ID, Sonali, so we have to just type that in. As far as a claim ID, no. Did I get through all the questions? Oh, okay. Got it. Informative session. Okay. Okay, so I have a question from Cynthia. I took the PMP bootcamp course and plan to take my exam next week. What is the minimum score I should achieve on the practice exam? Okay, great question to feel prepared. So on your practice exam, and I'm assuming, Cynthia, you're talking about the exam simulator, what you want to do is aim for, to the best of your ability, aim for 75% on the exam simulator before you sit for the exam. Okay, so do that and just take the exam simulator and use that as a guideline for you. And if you have any questions, I'll reach back out to us. If you have anything out and you need additional prep before you have to take the exam, reach out to us. Okay, Cynthia, I want you to feel comfortable going into the exam. If you just make sure you have any last minute questions answered if you need to. Okay, great. Tanya, thank you. Okay, so you were able to get your PDUs and now approved. Okay, great. This is really I'm just trying to make sure I don't miss any questions here. Krishna, I want to make sure we need to go to the online digital media page, which may be missed by many. Yes, thank you. I think Krishna, you're trying to help everybody. You have to get to the online digital media page for sure to enter your PDUs. Okay, anybody? Let me just make sure I've covered everything. Is there a way to see what other classes you teach? Yes. Velma, if you're still on, if you go to our website, I just put the link for some instructor-led virtual, but we have a lot of different classes. So please go to our website, rmcls.com, to see the other classes that we teach, Velma. Okay, good. I'm glad it was a good refresher for you, Peg. You're able to make it work, Taylor. Great. I'm so happy to hear that. Does RMC have self-paced? Yes. We have self-paced. We have e-learning. Yes. So reach out to us, go to the website, or if you want to email us, feel free to do that, Robert. And we love to see real life industry case studies as to how Agile helped to turn around a failure to a success in the next session. Great. Thank you for that feedback, Farhan. That's a great point. Real life case studies are very important, and I appreciate that feedback. When do iteration? Okay, great. Okay, we're still good. Najeda, I hope I said that right. Najeda, you asked a great question. Can you explain once again, when do iteration, review, and retrospective? So the iteration review is going to happen right after that time box development period. Then you're going, whatever increment or full deliverable was developed, that's when the iteration, you're in the iteration review, you're presenting that. Now, again, I'm giving kind of a generic explanation of this, but you're delivering that increment to the stakeholder, to the end user, for feedback on that, on that particular increment that we just developed. So that the iteration review takes place after. I was just making sure I had your question. After the iteration, and the retrospective then takes place typically after the iteration review, because we're reflecting on everything, and it's more of a team. How do we work together? How can we be more productive? How can we be more effective in the way that we produce the increment or the deliverable? So it's kind of that lessons learned and how we can be more effective, and it's all about continuous improvement as a team. So hopefully that's helpful for you. Let's see, is not coming. Value-driven delivery is not coming for any provider. Yeah, it wouldn't be under provider, Sonali. Oh, Sonali left. Okay, but it would. You would have to just type it in. Okay, and reach out if you need any help in reporting this. Continuous non-ending delivery process comparing to. So, Radek, if you're still here, Agile looks like continuous non-ending delivery process compared to traditional with beginning and an end. Okay, right. So, and then you said how long should the Agile project from your experience to be worth? Okay, so the definition of a project itself has a definitive beginning and a definitive end. So not at all. We have to close out an Agile project just like we have to close out a predictive or plan-driven project. So I don't mean to intimate that in this discussion that we're having today. It's just about showing that before the project finishes, we're delivering value. We don't wait to the very end, like in a lot of predictive projects, our typical traditional projects. The value really comes at the end, where here's the final deliverable. The idea with Agile is that we're delivering value throughout the entire project, but not that it continues on and on. There's a definite end and a definite closeout process so that the full value can be reached by the stakeholders and by the organization, because if we don't ever fully finish, then we can't fully receive the value. Okay, so great. So from your experience to do Agile, how long should a project be? To do Agile, it's really not about the length of time. It's more about what type of project is it? Does it lend itself to an Agile development approach? Are there quite a bit of uncertainties? Will the scope be emerging as we go along in the project? If so, if there's a lot of uncertainties, if it's something new that's never been developed before, or fairly new, those kind of uncertainties or scope, emerging scope, or that's why the software development environment is also lends itself to Agile. Agile would be a good choice. So those are more what you would be looking for when you're trying to decide. Okay, I have a couple more minutes. So Laura says, I'm unable to find provider. You won't find it. You just have to type it in there. It's not in the drop down for the PDUs. Yeah, and Victor, that wouldn't be the right one. Yeah, for the PDU, Victor, it wouldn't be the one that's in the drop down. It would be the one that is on the slide, as far as the provider name. Submitted, but it says takes 5 business days to process. Okay, you submitted for your PDU. Okay, you said it takes 5 days. I haven't seen that yet. Okay. And I was able to submit the PDU and get it approved successfully now. Yeah, usually it's you get approval very quickly, Farhan. So thank you for that feedback. Well, the presentation, I trying to think of that might get sent. Our marketing representative might send the presentation, but I know for sure it will be posted onto our website. So you will be able to see this again. Okay. Thank you, Velma, for the great feedback. And I appreciate it. I think that's it. If I didn't get to your questions, just reach out to us at info@rmcls.com. Appreciate everyone's time and all your questions, and bearing with me as I go through the question box, which is a little bit hard to read, but we got through it, and I wish you all the best. And come see us if you're interested in the PMP exam prep or some of the other classes as well. I didn't focus so much on those today, but just go to rmcls.com to look at our other classes and educational webinars that are coming up. We have them every month. All right, I look forward to seeing you all in the future. I guess I can't see you, but knowing that you're there in the future and potentially seeing you in a class. Take care, everyone, and thanks again.